is brought to you by Pups and Recreation, located in Randolph, New Jersey. They provide solo or pack walks for your dogs, drop-in services, as well as training, specializing in puppy training. They give 5% of their revenue to Save the Sados, which is Sados, it's not Sados, but I've been calling it that, which focuses on rescuing dogs in Puerto Rico. You should follow Pups and Recreation on Instagram at Pups and Recreation, all spelled out. I am super excited to have my guest, Cali DeCaro. I said it wrong before. And we're going to be talking a lot about her childhood. Her mother died when she was young. Her father remarried a man, and she owns about 75 businesses. But she is most important to me as a human, of course, but she is operations manager at MC Marketing and Content, and we would not be as successful as we are today without her. I am super excited to have Cali DeCaro.
Nope.
I'm super excited to have Cali DeCaro.
Nailed it.
And I want both of those in the podcast. On as a guest for Keeping It Juicy. Cali is CEO and owner of Rambling Photography, and she's also operations manager at MC Marketing and Content. She's a daughter, she's a mom, she's a new fiance. She is a trauma survivor and thriver and all-around great woman.
That's so nice.
I know, I'm so sweet. I'm super excited to have you on. You're an open book just like me, which is super important, especially for Keeping It Juicy. As you guys know, it's all about truth, rawness, real life. So Cali, first, I'd love for you to tell us more about you, where people can find you, all that good stuff.
Okay. I have my notes.
She has her notes. She was talking about not having them, but again, this is real life, so.
We don't want to be anxious.
No,
you know,
yeah.
remember
Oh, and if you
things.
hear music, there is a dance studio downstairs, so that's just what's happening.
That's the thing. So I started Rambling Photography in 2011. I started it a little bit after my daughter was born. Love babies, love capturing those moments for people. And then also there's like a trauma aspect to it because I'm like,
We'll get to that.
yeah, I'm like, oh my God, photos are so important. We'll get there. I also co-own a real estate listing media company. And then, as you said, MC Marketing and Content, also like official grammar corrector there.
Because we're not good at it.
It's okay. I love having a variety of things that I do because I love when things are always different, not the same thing every day. Like that would drive me insane. And yeah, what else?
Awesome.
Where else am I going?
And I'm wearing a full sweatsuit because Cali loves to be comfortable, as do I.
I honor
But I think
it.
I saw her for the first time in jeans last night ever, maybe.
That is without question the first time you've seen me in jeans.
I love it. So Cali has been through a lot in her life, and again, a large portion of this podcast will be talking to people who have gone through hardships, trauma, just things that maybe you have also gone through, and I want to make sure that everyone is telling their story. And Cali is obviously thriving now, so she has gotten through this trauma, and so if you're going through what she went through before, you're going to get through it as well, and that's really the big message here. So Cali's mother died when she was young, and correct me if I'm wrong with all of this, and her father remarried a man when he was previously married to her mother.
Yes.
So that is a big change, and this happened in the 90s. It's not
Yeah.
like it happened last year when times are very, very different. So, and how old were you back when it happened?
So my mom passed like 2 weeks before my 8th birthday.
Oh my gosh. And what did she pass away from?
Breast cancer. Very aggressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then tell us the whole story about your father, and he remarried, and how he came out to you, and
my God.
how it affected maybe your relationship or you in general, and what you learned from it, you know, as growing up.
So my parents were divorced. They got divorced when I was a baby, so I never remembered them together. My mom was remarried, and I lived with her and her husband in Mendham, but we were going to Randolph schools. My dad was super present in my life, and all was good. She had breast cancer, super aggressive. It went very quickly. So she passed, like I said, right before my 8th birthday. She was around 35, so she was pretty young.
Wow.
Upon her dying, my brother and I moved in with my dad and his roommate.
His roommate, quote
His
unquote.
roommate.
Now, do you still talk to your stepfather?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we move in with my dad and his roommate. They now tell us, like, we slept in separate rooms once you guys moved in, and they were like, this sucks.
Wow.
So
I'm sure.
they were like, we don't need to traumatize them anymore
Yeah.
quite yet. So they were just playing it cool. And then one day, we were my brother, my dad, and I were in the car. I was asleep in the back seat because, obviously.
Why not?
And my brother made a shitty joke. Can I curse? I assume? Okay. A shitty joke about gay people. Spoiler alert, my brother is gay now, obviously. And so my dad said, like, wow, you really shouldn't say things like that about people. And he was like, why? Are you gay? And my dad, like, pulls the car over, and he's like, Callie, wake up. And he, like, told me, and I didn't even know what it meant, so I just started crying, because I was like, something's happening. I don't know what's happening. So that is how he came out.
Wow. And you were 8? Or
I was,
around
yeah,
8,
like
9?
I would say around 8, 9.
And how old is your brother?
He is just a few years older than me. Okay. So, like, when I was a freshman, he was a senior in high school. So we were living in Bridgewater at the time, because that's where Tom and my dad were living. And then they were building a house in Randolph so that we didn't have to switch schools. And I don't really remember there being any kind of issue. It was just like, oh, okay, this is just the way it is now. And that's information that we've now taken in, and it is fine. Growing up with gay parents in the 90s and early 2000s, it isn't as scary as I think someone would think it would be. We had pride stickers on the back of our car, and people would occasionally, like, yell things at us when they would drive by, or you know, I was very aware of Matthew Shepard back then, and that there was a hatred or anger towards gay people, but it didn't really feel necessarily close to home. No one was threatening us, you know, on day to day. But I have this distinct memory of, we were driving to Florida, and they thought we were asleep in the car. And I heard my parents talking about, oh, when we're in the South, we need to be really careful. And that was the first moment that it was like, oh, people might hurt my parents, like, for being who they are. Right. So now the trauma of, like, that I already have of, oh my God, I hope my dad doesn't die, because that's just like an ever-present trauma that you have once one of your parents dies, now becomes, oh, it's not just that they might die. It could be someone may actively hurt them. Someone may go out of their way to, like, make this thing happen. But in general, we had a great family, a great upbringing. We were very fun. We had a lot of fun as a family. And I look back now, and I always try to think, like, of a positive that could come out of an experience. And one of the benefits, which is, it sounds terrible to be like, one of the benefits of being raised without a mom.
Well, silver lining.
Yeah.
Silver lining, quote unquote.
Yeah. One of the benefits of being raised without a mom that I have come to acknowledge now that I see my other friends who maybe have issues with their moms raising children and things is, I'm kind of like a blank canvas. I don't have any mother-daughter relationship issues that are, like, playing out in my relationship with my daughter. And so I think of that, I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of nice. Like, we're just kind of figuring out our relationship for what it is, rather than playing out some dynamic or trying to fix some dynamic that I previously had.
I also wanted to talk about your path to where you are today in your career, because we have talked about how you were on the farm raising alpacas or working with alpacas. I think I asked you this a few months ago, and I was like, how did you get here?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. So, like all teenagers, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had no real passions. So I just went to college and had a really good time.
She doesn't drink anymore. Maybe she
I
drank too much
I didn't
back
even
then.
really drink then. I still just had a really good time. I was at Monmouth University, and sophomore year, or finishing out sophomore year, I realized I wanted to work with animals. So I transferred to Rutgers. I got a job at an alpaca and llama farm while I was going there. It was literal heaven on earth, like going to work every day. It's like you couldn't ask for anything more. You're outside, you're with animals. My best friend at the time was working with me. Like, it was just everything. We were running the farm, just the two of us. Like, it was awesome. But it was a lot of physical labor. Lots of hay bale lifting and throwing and catching big animals and all of that type of stuff, birthing big animals. One day, I was 21, I was catching a llama. I forget what I needed him for. He's blind on one side. I wasn't thinking. I just caught him on that side, spooked him. He kind of jerked back and like jerked one of my discs right out with him. Kind of long path to recovery after that, but I had to drop out of college at the time. I couldn't sit, so it was my low back. I had to drop out of college. Wound up getting surgery in 2007, and then by the time I was 24, I was engaged and pregnant. By the time I was 25, I was married and had a kid.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Were you dating your ex-husband now when you were, when did you start dating your ex-husband?
When I was 18.
When you were 18. So that whole thing you went through with him and then, okay.
Yeah. I got to stay home with my daughter, which was wonderful. I was super lucky I could do that, and I would stay home with her during the day, go to school at night to finish a degree. I wound up finishing an associate's degree because none of my credits like added to anything.
Wow.
So I wound up finishing an associate's degree in early childhood education, and just as I was finishing that degree, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I don't want to deal with kids all day and then come home
And have a
to my kid and just like do it all over again. So I kind of went back to like 18-year-old me, and I was like, and now I don't know what I'm gonna do, and I have no direction again. And so I kind of just got a job at a doctor's office and was running Rambling while I was building that, working at the doctor's office. And then I wound up meeting my now business partner, who was fully running by himself the real estate photography media company. And I started working as a photographer for him. I wound up, after many years, becoming co-owner, and that kind of brings us to where we are today, doing Rambling, doing the real estate media company, and MC marketing.
And I think this is a great lesson that you started out doing one thing, now you're not doing it. I started out as a registered dietitian. I'm not doing anything related to that. I still have my RD just in case, of course, but at any age you can change what you want to do, whether you're 18, 30, 50, 70. If you want to change it, you can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. You can change it, and it doesn't mean it's going to be easy, right?
It can be actually very hard.
Yeah, and I was very lucky at the time when I wanted to leave my job at the doctor's office and essentially try out being a real estate photographer. I was super lucky that my ex-husband was like, yeah, give it a shot. Let's see what happens. And it worked out, and then things kind of just built from there. He and I separated in 2018, and that was actually a very wonderful moment in my life. I felt very free, and being a single mom worked very well for me. It was a good time in my life. I really like being alone. So then I was like, great, I'm going to be alone forever. This is what we're going to do. Alone forever. Love that for me. And then I met the love of my life in 2020, and the universe was like, just kidding.
And you got engaged a few weeks ago.
Yes. It's very exciting.
So whether you want to be alone, whether you want to be with someone, whether you're changing your career, whether you're getting hurt and dropping out of college, or if you just had a bad breakup, things that happen are meant to be, no matter how hard they are. And there are silver linings to everything. I will talk about that when I talk about my cancer journey. I had tons of silver linings when I was sick. One of them, Mr. Chester shaving his head because he was balding, so it was necessary. But anything that happens to you in life, you can find a silver lining. So I have 3 questions. Well, I actually have 4 for you. It'll be 3 for everybody else.
Oh my
but
God.
The first question is, if you were on death row, what would your last meal be?
You know how hard this is of a question for me.
Callie is gluten-free, but I assume
I
your
would
last meal,
obviously not be for my last meal. I'd be like,
assume
can you bring in a bucket of gluten?
just pure gluten.
Just a bucket of
and
flour.
kill me right after.
So my immediate thought when you say that is like a ginormous pizza, ideally from Pizza Palace in Randolph. But like, that's like the vision I get when it's like, what's the last thing you want? Oh my God.
I don't know if there's pounding downstairs, so if you
There
hear
might
that,
be.
just ignore it.
It's like, we will rock you.
Lord, help me.
And then if I could like add on to it to have a dessert, that would really go day by day, right? Because if you're like, I'm in the mood for cake today, or I'm in the mood for ice cream, but like creme brulee, come on.
Yum.
Giant creme brulee too, like the size of the
wait to eat
pizza,
dinner.
same thing, yes. Oh,
Yum.
God.
What is your biggest fear in life?
Leaving my daughter too soon, obvious. Second to that would be something happening to her, people I love, but leaving my daughter too soon is highest on the list on that one.
Yeah. And I don't think that we should have regrets in life, but when you look back in life, on the first episode, I said that I wish I was nicer to my mother when I was a teenager because I was just a wretched teenager. So what is something that you look back and maybe that you could change or do a little bit different?
So like you said before, I'm a big believer in everything happens for a reason. So I don't believe in going back and changing anything that would have like changed the trajectory of my life, right? Like as much, everyone's like, wouldn't you say you wish your mom didn't die? Like, yeah, that'd be great. But also like I wouldn't be who I am.
Yeah.
So I would say, okay, I have two. So one, I wish I developed a healthy relationship with food and exercise early on. And or I wish I could have chosen kindness in high school in moments where maybe I like hurt people.
Yeah. I'm sure majority of humans feel that at some point.
Yeah.
As well as the food and exercise. Because I'm a registered dietitian by training, and I have history of binge eating disorder, and the last 10 years have formed a very healthy relationship, as you see me eating all the time. And I'll talk about that in another episode. And then my last question for you is, what is it like working for Miss Chester?
Oh my God. Chaos.
Don't hold I mean, some days, yeah.
No, it's amazing. Like, it's so much fun. I mean, we went out to dinner last night, and it was so much fun. Yeah. But it is always different. It is a lot of being like, Caitlin, remember?
And I ask her to do that because I will say I'll do something and then I'll forget because I think I have ADHD. Yeah. So I really wanted someone to remind me. That's like the majority of your job is reminding me to like send the contract or sign off on this, that kind of stuff.
Yep. Send the invoice. Yeah. Did you make this payment?
Yep.
Do you remember?
Nope.
But no, it's so fun. We have such a good time.
We do.
Yeah. I love it.
I'm so thankful to have you on the team.
I'm so
and
grateful
to be on
for you.
Keeping It Juicy.
So juicy.
Awesome. Well, as always, everybody, be sure to keep it real and keep it juicy. Thank you for listening to this episode of Keeping It Juicy. You can find this episode and all the rest on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. And as always, don't forget, keep it juicy.